As you all know, for decades, a group of DC-based journalists, the White House Correspondents Association, has long dictated which journalists get to ask questions of the President of the United States in these most intimate spaces. Not anymore. I am proud to announce that we are going to give the power back to the people who read your papers, who watch your television shows, and who listen to your radio stations. Moving forward, the White House press pool will be determined by the White House press team. Legacy outlets who have participated in the press pool for decades will still be allowed to join, fear not, but we will also be offering the privilege to well-deserving outlets who have never been allowed to share in this awesome responsibility.
Sean Spicer, what's your honest reaction to this? Because I've got to say...
I think it's fantastic.
You do? Go on, yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, absolutely fantastic. But just so audience understands, there's two things to know. Number one, the White House Correspondents Association has a set of criteria who can join it. And if you can't join it, they limit that by what you do for a living, whether your financial interests, your transparency with your company. There's a set of criteria. You can go on their website and read it. So, for example, I tried to join when I went to Newsmax. They rejected my application. So they get to determine who's in it. And then what happens is there's a list with what Caroline's referring to there is the pool. So there's, in smaller instances, not in the briefing room, obviously, the Oval Office, Air Force One, there is a pool. What is that? One or two print, wire reporters, cameras, photographers, and they among themselves, the White House Correspondents Association will rotate NBC, ABC News, Fox, whatever. And so every day they take a different turn. Then they disseminate that information to the rest of the media outlets. So the White House Correspondents restricts who can be part of that, thereby limiting who can go to the Oval Office or Air Force One. What Caroline announced there was they get to stay part of it, right? So you're still going to have NBC and ABC, but it's going to be augmented. They're going to allow a new media seat. They're going to add additional cameramen. This is actually more transparency, more media access, more appreciation for the White House correspondents. Under the Biden administration, they cut 440 press passes from independent journalism, and the White House Correspondents Association said nothing. These people don't care about press access. They don't care about the First Amendment. They care about controlling what the American people see, read, and hear by limiting who has access. And they're pissed that somebody now actually outside of them can go into the Oval Office or on Air Force One and actually disseminate information that's not the left-wing bias.
Yeah, listen, I don't actually have any objection to that for the reasons you've articulated very well. But the problem I do have is with the Associated Press getting barred from entering the Oval Office or traveling on Air Force One because they refused to use the new terminology Gulf of America for the Gulf of Mexico as it was known before Donald Trump renamed it. And their position is they're an international organization, which they clearly indisputably are, and that many places outside of America continue to call it Gulf of Mexico, as it's been known historically. Why should they be barred for that?
Before we get into that and answer that question, to bring up the speech, obviously this is Piers Morgan's show, and they're going on and talking about the dichotomy of free speech. And as we see here, now with the press moving forward with Donald Trump, a lot of different journalists and different people are now allowed to come in and be journalists and get information at the press hearings. Now you need different qualifications and you can't get into every single area. But this has been a big notion amongst the left that they think that this shouldn't be allowed. Obviously because they're the legacy media and they don't want other people to get involved and interject. But what's going to be brought up now is, well, if this is the case and we're allowing more different diverse people in free speech, why are we not allowing certain journalists in who don't want to abide by the new bill that Trump signed, which is the Gulf of Mexico is no longer the Gulf of Mexico, it's now the Gulf of America. And the left is not going to have any answer to that. So let's see what they got to say moving forward with this video. Let's take a look.
Well, it's actually much broader. It has to do with their whole style book, how they mandate what people what other news organizations use. So they would start saying, we're going to capitalize the word black, but not white. We're going to use gender affirming care. We're going to use pronouns. Oh. They actually dictate everything that a lot of media associations and frankly, even US government outlets use based on the style book. So here's the thing that people have to remember. The Associated Press still has their press passes. They're still in the White House briefing room, but the invitation to go into the president's office, they've restricted. That's not freedom of the press is allowing them to write what they want, to say what they want, and they still enjoy all of that. They enjoy full access to the White House briefing room. All their correspondents have their pass. The president has a right to decide who goes into his office. I can't walk into the Associated Press's office just because I have a First Amendment right to say things. This is ridiculous. They get to decide who goes into his office. That's his prerogative.
Mark, it's ridiculous apparently, but you're not having it.
The president's office isn't like walking into my office or Sean's office. That's sort of a dishonest comparison. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that Sure. The White House, Trump's office, and more broadly the White House, is not just a space. It's a signpost of access to democracy, access to the political process, and that's what we're concerned about. I agree with you that press freedom is about being able to write what you want without pressure, without any type of punishment. I think the issue here is if different people have different levels of access based on their style guide, based on what their political persuasion is, it encourages or incentivizes people to make certain choices versus others. At the end of the day here, I'm not even concerned about Trump. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I am concerned about Trump, but that's not my biggest concern. My concern here is I don't want particular political administrations, whether they're Democrat or Republican, making decisions about who comprises the press corps, who gets into certain rooms and who doesn't. Because even if you trust Trump completely, or even if you trust the next president completely, there will be political organizations and political administrations who we cannot trust. And when that happens, I don't want them to be the deciders.
All right.
What he's saying is actually antithetical to the way it has been done for a long time. The government has always been involved in choosing who's allowed in and who's not. But what this administration is doing now is saying, we're not going to limit it. We're going to open it up to a more wider spectrum, podcasters, independent media, all different types of people, to a larger group. And now he's saying, well, I have a problem with this because we shouldn't be able to dictate this. Well, it's been dictated on a smaller scale of the amount of people who are allowed in. Now it's being opened up. And now he's trying to spin the narrative as if this is bad, to allow more different journalists in different news groups in here to speak about it. He has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. He's a joke.
Let me bring in Jason.
Here's the point.
Hang on, Sean.
If you agree with everything that Mark said, which is, I think, very fair points, then where was this concern when the last administration cut 440 passes of journalists? Where was the concern when the White House correspondents restricted anyone else from joining?
You made that
the pool?
point. It's a good point.
I love this, but these are not. Then where was all of those?
I understand. I think there is a double standard. I agree with you. And actually, the biggest.
I don't think it's a double standard. But we should have been concerned.
All right. The biggest attacker on journalism and journalistic rights actually was Barack Obama. Historically, he did more to erode the rights of journalists than anyone. Never mind Trump. Let me bring in Anna here. I mean, it's a tricky area. This what was clear is this extraordinary stack onto the National Journal. President Trump has taken over 1,000 questions from reporters in his first month of a second term, compared to Biden 141 and Obama 161. So this idea that he's not the most transparent president in modern times is for the birds. He clearly is. People may not like what he's saying, but he's taking questions from pretty much anyone all the time.
Well, I'm about to say things that will upset everyone on each side of the political aisle because, honestly, I think that there are bad actors on both sides. So, for instance, there was a lack of transparency under the Biden administration, and that lack of transparency had to do with the fact that he was suffering from mental decline and everyone around him was hiding him from the public. So he didn't have nearly enough press briefings. They were kind of evasive with important questions, and that cover-up ultimately destroyed the Democratic Party, certainly in the last election cycle. Now, in regard to Donald Trump, I agree that it is a good thing to include members of independent media, new media. I think that's, generally speaking, a great thing. I would be far more celebratory if Donald Trump wasn't so devastatingly petty and also retaliatory against media that doesn't, serve his interests or do exactly what he wants. So, the AP is a good example. I think another example is this lawsuit against 60 Minutes. Obviously, when you're airing an interview on television, you have time constraints. You have to cut down on some of the content or the interview answers so it fits in, so you can go to break. And I hate that model. I think live linear has a lot of downfalls, and that's one of them. But the idea that they intentionally edited her to make Kamala Harris sound better is laughable to me, because whether it's the word salad answer on what's happening in Israel and Gaza or the shortened answer, I don't think she really particularly had a great answer. It didn't make her look good. And Trump won the election. What are you doing suing 60 Minutes over this? That's insanity.
Well, I think you know.
And
I think if you
honestly,
face, I think if you faced as he did, if you faced 2 years of relentless bullshit about Russian collusion, you've probably got a very, very cynical view of the way the very liberal skewed mainstream media has behaved towards you. And Trump, he's got I would say he has the thinnest skin I've ever met and the thickest. He can take stuff that would destroy anybody else, but he's going to react to absolutely every slight that anyone imposes on him. It's just his nature. He ain't going to change at 78, I can tell you.
I understand what you're saying, Pierce. I understand what you're saying, but understand that, do we value our Constitution or not? Do we value freedom of the press or not? Do we value the idea that the government cannot retaliate against you over your speech in America?
Yeah.
I value those things.
Yeah.
And it's really important for the president, through his actions, to prove that he also values those things.
Jason, you've been waiting patiently. What's your view of this?
He's proven a million times that he values the freedom of the press. The man went to the NABJ convention, sat down in front of 2 black women and probably a gay black man, I can't remember, went into the den of the people that hate him the most and took all their questions. They were late getting him on stage, late showing up. He took all their questions. The man is fearless, and he has every right to punch back. The Associated Press is Associated propaganda. It is the enemy of America. Donald Trump's not lying there. The Associated Press is part of this global establishment that wants to destroy American freedoms. And this man has every right to punch back. They need to be hit in the mouth. They lie every day. They distort every day. They're part of, and again, I've heard you all say, hey, this isn't about race. Yes, it is. The Associated Press and all the American media have been pulling a racial hoax on voters and the American citizens for 60 straight years. If you don't support these left-wing propaganda deals, all of it, hook, line, and sinker, you're a racist. And there's no greater smear. Nothing can hurt your economic viability, opportunities in the media, opportunities just to be seen as a normal citizen, than these leftists calling you a racist for supporting the Constitution and just common sense.
Okay. I gotta say, I don't.
Listen, I couldn't agree more with Jason. I would say his estimation of the media may be a little bit harsh, but at the end of the day, the whole mainstream media machine was absolutely positively against Trump. And that's why he lost his second election and wound up winning this third one, because the people were so convinced that he was bad man orange. And they had all these fake things in the media, Russia collusion, this, that, and the third. And then when his third election came up, when Donald Trump was running, the machine tried to throw him in jail because they knew they had nothing else. But the American people saw through it. Donald Trump won the popular vote. He won the Electoral College. He won the Supreme Court. He won Congress and the House. He won the whole damn thing. And the mainstream media was completely against him, except independent media outlet and somewhat of Fox News and some other independent and smaller news stations, such as maybe the Australian network. Forbes was somewhat unbiased in a lot of different ways. But at the end of the day, the machine has been against anything conservative, anything on the right for a long time. And for Anna here, that's where Anna loses her argument, and she goes back with the left-leaning radicalness and say that, well, this, that, and the third, I don't think what he's doing is right. It doesn't matter if he won or not. He is going for transparency, he's going for clarity, and that's why he's going after 60 Minutes for manipulating the interview to try to get her to win. They've been coming after him, he's going to come after them. So, hope you liked this video. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video.